President Akufo-Addo has finally released the much-anticipated list of deputy ministerial nominees. The president earlier today submitted to the Speaker, Alban Sumana Kingsford Bagbin, the names of his deputy ministerial nominees for Parliament's prior approval. He's actually asking them to be quick with it. It includes names of deputy ministers who have been retained, as well as some new entrants. Shortly, we'll get some reactions from some of the nominees. But first, my colleague Winston Amwa has a copy of the list, and he joins me right now in studio. Well, those are some of the pictures of the people, new entrants, I must say, who have joined. Winston, it's good to have you. Let's take a viewers through the list that we have.
Yeah, so if you look at the list now, there's creation of a Minister of State at the Ministry of Finance. That's Charles Eduboahin. So we've been focused very much on the deputy ministers, but Charles Eduboahin now, you could classify it as a bit of elevation. He used to be deputy minister during the previous administration and now becomes the Minister of State. And at the Finance Ministry, Abna Sayasari retains her position as the deputy minister. We know that Kweku Kwating is now chairman of the Finance Committee, and so he is not there. Charles Eduboahin has become Minister of State at the Ministry of Finance, and so he's been elevated. Then John Kuma, who was CEO of the National Entrepreneurship and Innovation Plan, NAPE, contested and won, became a member of Parliament, first-time member of Parliament. He goes to the Ministry of Finance also as a deputy minister. At the Trade Ministry, in the previous administration, you had two deputy ministers. Now there are three of them. Nana Duku Esiameji, member of Parliament for Kuapem North, was deputy minister for information under the previous administration. And Michael Otribefi, member of Parliament for New Jabing South. He was the CEO of the Ghana Free Zones Authority. He becomes Deputy Minister for Trade and Industry if approved by Parliament. And Herbert Krapper, who at a point was spokesperson for Nana Akufo, for the Director of Communications of his campaign, he became the government advisor on governance and legal affairs, is going to be a Deputy Minister of Trade and Industry. At the Energy Ministry, now, William Oreku Edu and Mohamed Amin Adam have been maintained as deputy ministers of energy. But Andrew Ejapamesa, member of Parliament for Sekendi, comes in also as a deputy minister for energy. Local government decentralization and rural development, Augustine Collins in team and Obi Amwa maintained in that particular ministry. But there's a new addition, Martin J. Mensakos, a member of Parliament for Techiman South, the Techiman South, and he was a deputy to Dan Botry when Dan Botry was Minister of Regional Reorganization and Development. And so you could see that looks more like he's followed, Dan Botry into this new ministry when Dan Botry was moved there.
Okay. The
Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration Ministry has Thomas Mbomba and Kweku Aprechum Sapol. The Office of the Attorney General and Ministry of Justice, Fretia Yeboah and Diana Asunaba Dapa. Food and Agriculture, Yao Ado, and Mohammed Hadi Tufero. At the Education Ministry, you have John Intim Fojo, who's a member of Parliament for Asin South.
Also a new entrant.
Yes, a new entrant. And Gifty Chum Ampofo. She's been retained. Now, at the Health Ministry, you have Tina Gifty Mensah, member of Parliament for Wejagbawe. She's been maintained. She was there in the previous administration. And Mahama Asay Seni, as a new entrant, is coming. The Lands and Natural Resources Ministry, Benito Wusubio, is maintained. But there's a new addition, but there's a new entrant.
Okay.
George Mirkuduk, a member of Parliament for Takwal Swayim, has been nominated as Deputy Minister. Roads and Highways, Mavis Nkansa Bwedu and Stephen Pambin Janula have been nominated. Then Transport Ministry, and that's where
a lot of people have eyes there.
Yes, because Hassan Tampuli is there, member of Parliament for Gushegu. He was the CEO of the National Petroleum Authority. He won his election in the 2020 elections. And Frederick Obing Adam. Now, this is the ministry that Titus Glover was deputy minister. He's not featured in the list. Defense Ministry, Kofi Amankwa Menu. Interior, Nana Iya Kwansa. Communications and Digitalization, Ama Poma Boateng. Housing, Abdullah Abanga. Fisheries and Aquaculture Development, Moses Enim. Railway Development, Kweku Asante Boateng. And Sanitation and Water Resources, Amidu Sahaku Chinia. And Tourism, Arts and Culture is Mark Okreku Mante.
Right.
And Gender, Children and Social Protection, Lariba Zuwera Abudu. and Employment and Labor Relations, will be maintained in that particular ministry. Information has a new deputy minister. This time round, one deputy minister, Fatima Abubakar. And Youth and Sports has Evans Opoku Bobie as the member of, deputy Youth and Sports minister.
Okay, so that's the list that my colleague Winston Amwa has just gone through for you. We'll be taking, zooming in and taking a bit more, like a much more closer look at this particular list. And like I was asking earlier in the headlines, what value do they bring to these positions? We'll be joined also by a political scientist, so we have a quick conversation. But let's start from who made it and who didn't make it. We've seen quite a number of new entrants, as we put it. So far, you're counting like how many new entrants?
I've counted more than 20.
More than 20?
Yes, about 20
new
of them.
Yes, and this is a list of what, 27?
There's a list of 46.
46?
No, a list of 40. No. This is a list of 40, actually.
Okay.
There's a list of 40, because now if we add these deputy ministers and the minister of state to the 46, it takes it to 86 now. When Eugene Ahin released a statement on the 21st of January 2021, it actually talked about the fact that there will be not more than 85 ministers.
Okay.
Not more than 85 ministers. Well, but there's more than 85. There's 86.
But it's still close. But that's you adding. Is that you adding the Minister of State?
Yes, I've added it into it.
Well, maybe that's.
No, but he's still a minister, because if we hadn't added him, then we'd have had 85.
Okay.
He's a minister, so you add him and it becomes.
So you're saying that so far you've counted about 20.
Well, 20 of them.
20 of the new entrants.
Yes,
which of them stands out for you?
Well, I think
that from the finance and perhaps the energy ministries.
Well, yeah. So John Kuma, but you see, with John Kuma's position, we'd have to do a bit of also analysis and look at a bit of regional balance, I'd say. I mean, he's been CEO of the National Entrepreneurship and Innovation Plan. He's been a member of the NPP. He's been with, the Young Patriots. And so we cannot doubt the fact that he's a loyal member of the NPP. He's shown when he became CEO. Now he's become a member of parliament. So you'd expect him.
He's risen through the ranks.
And so if he's been made a deputy minister, you wouldn't be shocked or surprised. I think the shock is where he's been placed as the deputy finance minister.
But why is that? Why is there a shock there?
Well, it's a shock for many persons because, when the list initially came out, until Monday, when his name came up, many persons were made to believe that it was going to be Charles Edubahin, who also until Monday we knew was going to be a deputy minister again. Already the president had indicated that he was acting as his representative at the Ministry of Finance when Ken Ofori-Atta was away in the US. So that was the situation. But also we can look at John Kuma's appointment from another perspective. And this is the perspective. You know that during the first term of Akufo-Addo, you had Ken Ofori-Atta, Abnose Asare, Charles Edubahin, and Kweku Kwating from the Ashanti region. Now, Charles Edubahin, his father, Edubahin, associates very much with the Eastern region. Abnose Asare, member of parliament for, I think, Etiwa East, West, one of them.
Okay.
And also from the Eastern region. Ken Ofori-Atta himself from the Eastern region. And Kweku Kwating was from the Ashanti region. Now, Kweku Kwating is moved to the to parliament as chairman of the finance committee in parliament. When Marcus Ibeyebwa lost his primaries, MPP was thinking of filling that particular position. And Kweku Kwating has distinguished himself as having a good understanding.
So you see John Kuma as...
So I see John Kuma as...
The replacement?
The replacement. This is like taking one from the Ashanti region, bringing another from the Ashanti.
Is it so much about regional balance when it comes to the finance ministry rather than...
No, I am not saying that, but also...
That's what it looks like.
It makes political sense that you don't keep one region in a ministry. It makes political sense. I mean, these are things we wouldn't say openly, but it makes political sense not to keep one region
in one ministry.
In one ministry. So
I see.
Minister, deputies, all from the same region. No.
I think Ejapa Mensah has also come up quite, pretty interestingly. People have looked at the role he played when it came to defending the Ejapa deal, for example, the role he played when it came to speaking to the issues about PDS, etc. Some people have seen this as a sort of reward for that work. Is that how you see it as well?
Well, I think that, Andrew Japamesa has distinguished himself, communicated for the party. I mean, he's also had his fair share of, controversies. But when the chiefs of the Western region went to the president and requested certain positions to be given to the Western region, the president, and in that letter on the 21st of January, signed by Eugene Ahin, indicated that they were going to have a deputy minister of energy from the Western region.
I see.
Now, a deputy minister of energy from the Western region, and mind you, Joseph Kujo, who was a deputy minister for energy coming from the Western region, had been moved to become Minister of State in charge of public enterprises. Now, once he was away, you're left with George Mrekuduka and Andrew Ejapamesa. Why? Because we do know that, for all those who lost their seats as members of parliament, they have not featured in this government. Look at it.
Okay, we'll get there.
Nobody.
We'll get there.
Okay.
I'm going to raise that so we treat it specially. But you're talking about Mrekuduka and then Andrew
Mrekuduka.
Both of them have found their way on this list,
Great.
by the way.
And also because now, so in the Western region, then you had, the likes of Joe Gate, who wasn't giving a position.
At all.
You had Kobno Chidakume, Member of Parliament for Takrady, Kobno Chidakume, Western Regional Minister. You have first-timers like, Dr. Prenzama for Kwesimintim. Okay. You have first-timer like John Sani from Mpaho constituency.
Okay.
And so if you look at the Western region, for instance, and if you have to choose a minister, a first-timer like, Samuel Erickson Abaka from the Shama constituency, you're left with two-timers, Kujokum, Ebenezer Kujokum, who's chieftaincy minister, Andrew Ejapamesa, and then you have George Mrekuduka. So it would make sense that these persons get positions. And if you look at it critically, coming from a mining area, for instance, when it comes to George Mrekuduka, it would make sense if he's made Deputy Lands and Natural Resources Minister. And then for Andrew Ejapamesa, who I'm told in the last administration, it got to a point in time, they really would have wanted to make him Deputy Minister when there was a time to do so. But so it's one person who was certainly going to be given something. And what a way to do it if you're moving Joseph Kujo from the Sekondi Takrady metropolitan area. Well, now there's Efia Kwesimintim Municipal Assembly, but in those days, if you're moving someone from Efia and you brought another person from Sekondi, it would make sense.
Okay. Winston, I'll come back to you. Let me just pause you briefly. I want to get on the phone lines now. So we'll talk to some of these people who have been nominated, maintained or retained. And let's find out what value, for those who were in, who are still in now, what value do they add? And what more are they bringing to the state? When I'm done with that, we'll talk about no seats, no selection. I do have Bright Rekobrobe, who is the Deputy Minister for Employment and Labour Relations, joining us online now. Sir, thank you for your time. Good afternoon. How does it feel?
Good afternoon, Gibson. Good afternoon to the cherished viewers and listeners. This has been speculated for some time now. The president met us last week, so at least we are assured of what was going to happen. And by grace and by your prayer, I think today has been the official timeline. Once this communication is communicated to Mr. Speaker, it triggers the process, and then we are going through. So I feel very much humbled. I am honored that in the Lord's own time, some of these things are coming. Being a deputy minister for the second time running is something that, for me, I think that it's marks of confidence from the presidency into your activities, and it also places some burden on me to continue to help.
Which is exactly what I was coming to. Sorry to interrupt you. The fact that you have been appointed the second time, there are several people who have been dropped off the president's list, but you have been able to make your way through it. What value do you think you actually added to not just the presidency, but to the state as a country, to our development? That has kept you here.
I think that by and large, like I said, first, I'll give thanks to the Lord, and then also to the president, and also to the many workers in Ghana who have opportunities speaking to the president, and even you, Gifty, yourself, the way you talk to me, the way you you question me when matters related to the labor front come. I think that by and large, my minister is entrusted with ensuring that the labor front and labor relations and, the value chain of employment is well coordinated. This is what I bring to him. The name of the ministry, which ends with labor relations, is not for nothing. We have to ensure that we have the best of relationship between employers and workers, between government and employers, between government and labor. And all of these things demand that one exhibit a certain level of skill, i.e., humility, love for one another, respect for labor, and so on. And for me, I think that having supported my minister in doing this over the last 4 years, the president, to borrow his words when he met me, said that he doesn't want to disturb the relationship between me and my minister in ensuring that the labor front is very calm.
Okay.
And this is what he told me. So I think that it really encourages me for me to continue to give off my best to ensure that His Excellency the President's second term is something that so marvelous and Ghanaians can have the benefit.
We'll see how it goes. But speaking about labor relations, there have been quite a number of agitations, industrial agitations. I mean, you can talk about doctors, they've had their own, you can talk about teachers, even mortuary workers have had their own, industrial actions. What is the strategy this time around to make sure that these issues don't escalate into some of these litigations before we deal with it? What's your strategy?
Yeah, the first thing for you to know is that we are dealing with human beings, and therefore agitations are very real. They are natural. They will come. As and when they come, the way to manage it is the contentious matter. So as they come, and the way we relate to labor and call them, listen to them, give them attentive ear, and more importantly, resolve their matters. Most of the time, the issues don't emanate from our ministry. They come from sister ministries. And when labor comes to us, that is where we exhibit leadership. My minister would always get in touch with sister ministers and ensure that whatever it takes to address an issue is done. We do not sleep. We work round the clock, in the night, at dawn, every time, trying to make sure that relationships are strengthened.
In the previous administration,
this is exactly what we're going to do.
Okay, Mr. Akubo, in the previous administration, we saw quite a number of the ministry taking sort of a legal position when it came to resolving some of these matters, that you go to court or you go to the Labour Commission to actually compel agitating workers to go back to work because you would have described their actions as illegal. Is it that you weren't able to have this conversation that you are describing, which is why you had to resort to legally forcing them to work?
Yeah. You see, I'm so happy you are recounting some of this. The processes of these agitations and their resolution, and probably with the legality. We have not used the legal means as a first step. We have always tried to speak and speak and speak, but the legal processes, that probably is giving me the mandate now as a designate or a nominee to be speaking, is the same legal processes that we use. So after talking, if misunderstandings are still there and we are not trying to make headway, then we go to arbitrate and then make sure that the law speaks. And that is how come in some of the resolutions we had to go to the National Labour Commission or to court to make sure that people are kept in line to do what they have to do. But it is not the first option that my minister and I have been using. Remember that anytime you call us, we tell you that matters of labor are akin to matrimonial issues, and we need to resolve them behind the scenes. It only gets to your attention when we have not been able to do so, and then we plead with them until we get the law to take its course. And thank God, every time we have done that, if Labour Commission gives us any ultimatum we have worked within that period to ensure that there is peace on the labor front.
Mr. Akuba, I wish you all the best. I'm sure that as and when any other issues come up, we'll be able to reach out to you. And as you do, and as you have done now, you will respond to it. In the meantime, I want you to just be reminded that the teachers have been asking for textbooks. That's something that sounds like an agitation brewing in the background. Maybe something you want to turn your attention to before it blows up. Thank you very much for your time once again.
Thank you.
Bright Reku-Brobe is Deputy Ministerial Nominee for Employment and Labor Relations. Winston, what do you make of the answers that he's giving us to how he and the minister intends to deal with labor front agitations?
Well, let me just say that he worked with, Ignatius Bafwewa. At a point in time, they put out, I'll come to the question, but at a point in time, they put out figures about 2 million jobs haven't been created.
How did I forget that? That was one of the things I was going to ask him. The database, yes, when it comes to employment. Maybe we can raise him back on the line. Well,
look, the thing about labor agitations is that they always would come. Around this time, you can understand that also because of the situation we find ourselves in. Apart from the very things that labor believes they are due, a lot of them would be very moderate in their agitations also, because we all know that
we're not in normal time.
We're not in normal time. There isn't a lot of money. But there'll be some agitations all the same. They have to deal with it. I have seen instances where they've compelled labor unions to go back to work because they didn't follow the right, but not them, but you had the National Labour Commission doing so. So I would want to see this pair do more this time around, and also be able to provide the data that they promised in the last administration that they couldn't provide. Because the thing about data, and I mean employment data, is that it helps all of us to plan. We know that this is the number that we have, and then we get more. But in Ghana, we throw out figures, and when you're challenged to prove it, they say, "I'll come back," and they never come back.
Yeah, and I remember how this thing played out. Even at the ministers' vetting in Parliament, it played out very strongly. I had that at the back of my mind. I just don't know how I skipped it, but we'll try and get him. Well, this is just his first response to this one, so we'll get more on that. But Winston, you were talking about no seats, no selection. It looks as if from what you studied the document and reviewed, if you didn't win your seat, you were out.
Yes, because I think it was on the 20th of January or so when I read a report that indicated that for ministers who lost the elections, they're not going to come back.
It was in the report?
No, I mean it was in a story that I read. A story that I read that said that ministers who lost their seats weren't going to come back. Now, when I look at the two, appointments, the ministers and deputy ministers, not a single person who lost his seat is back.
Okay.
Yes.
But the presidency has a quota that ought to come from Parliament in terms of who is appointed.
More than 50% from Parliament. And so once there's more than 50% from Parliament, that's the end of it. And if I'm to look at this list, I mean, I could just tell you about
it looks like there's a deliberate attempt.
About 30 of them are from Parliament anyway. So, that's the point. And I'm saying that, look, it was obvious that for anybody who lost his seat, he wasn't going to come back to Parliament. I mean, he wasn't going to come back as a minister. Mention Anthony Kabo. He lost his seat.
Yes.
Anthony Kabo as Deputy Roads Minister, he lost his seat. Bernard Okuboy was appointed in the last year of Akufo-Addo.
Exactly, yes.
And, I mean, that was made known to the public that if you lost your seat, you are not coming back. And so, Bernard Okuboy, fantastic Deputy Health Minister, unfortunately for him, he lost his seat.
I mean, I'd love to hear from you if you're watching us and listening to this. Jump on our social media handles and let us know what you think about these ministers who have been dropped, deputy ministers.
And then you look at, Titus Glover. He lost his seat in Tema East. He was Deputy Transport Minister. Do you see him in the list? He's not back.
He's not, yeah.
Exactly. Look, there was a Paul Asian of the Jomro constituency. He lost his election. He's not back in this government. For those who lost their elections, and it actually helped, the president to also give younger people the opportunity to also serve, because you've seen lots of young people coming in. I love that. Many of the persons that we've been talking about below 50 years, not a bad one. So for those who lost their seats, they didn't show up in this.
Do you think this is a deliberate effort to remove those who did not win back their seats, or this is just actually it looks more like a random thing that just happens, more like a coincidence?
No, this is a strategic decision
you think
to make sure that happens. But you see, this is the other point. When you are a minister and you lose and sometimes you're made a minister also because and if you're made a minister from a certain constituency, for instance, if you win a constituency for the first time, and that's why I am not surprised that, even though that was an NPP seat for Tampoli to win the primaries 6 months into the elections, campaigned very well, won handsomely, he's been rewarded with a deputy ministerial portfolio. So when you're made a deputy minister or a minister and you lose your elections, you have no justification to come back, particularly when you're a sitting member of parliament. So if you're Professor Jan Bafo and you've been member of parliament for Winchi since 2004, and in 2020 you lose your seat where Buzia hails from,
then you're obviously
there's no
coming
justification
back.
to come back
Okay.
to into the government as a minister. So that's the situation that happened there. Joe Garte, there's been
Also
lots of
out.
speculation about why he was out, but I'm not.
I mean, what are people saying behind the scenes, by the way?
I'm not going to get into that. But the fact that people have said that
It would be interesting to hear from him.
Well, people have said that because he wanted to be president.
Benefson said it. Benefson said it. So.
But some had actually said that earlier, that he wanted to be president, he should concentrate and become president. But that's it for those.
So he's lost his
Yes,
seat.
but one person whose name I do not see here, that I'm surprised, is Patrick Boama.
Why are you surprised?
Well, I'm surprised at Patrick Boama. I'm surprised because he's a third-time member of parliament. He was deputy minister in the previous administration. He's back in parliament, and so you'd ask yourself, why is he not a deputy minister? Maybe he could even have been made a minister, but his name is not in here, and that's one thing we probably may find answers to later.
Okay, Winston, let me just bring in Professor Jampo into this conversation. He's a political scientist, University of Ghana. He's joining us via Zoom. Prof, good afternoon. Thank you for your time.
Hi, good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
I'm sure that you've seen the list already. You must have had some conversations around the list as well. What do you say?
Now, I've not heard about your conversation. I was teaching, I just finished, and so
right.
But I've seen the list.
Okay.
I think basically, I am just excited about the fact that the size of the government has been reduced, and for me, that is what is the most important thing here. The rest is just a matter of the prerogative of the president. The size of the Akufo-Addo administration during his first term of office was unprecedentedly high in the history of politics and governance in Ghana since independence. Now, civil society leaders and opinion leaders, including some of us, had critiqued the size and had called for a drastic reduction in the size of the government. But in response, we were told that the end justifies the means. Well, the 2020 elections were held, and we saw that the results that I have described as a victory, a taste of defeat for the MPP was indicative of the fact that the huge size government and the many ministers couldn't do more. They couldn't do much to ensure that the party did what it was expected to do. It was a victory with a taste of defeat for a regime that always said the battle is the Lord's, and yet assembled so many people as if the battle was meant to be fought by men.
So you are impressed with the number for this term? You are impressed with the number for this term?
Yes, I am. I'm saying that the point I want to make is that I am happy that at the minimum, Akufo-Addo is supposed to do things drastically that would help him leave a lasting legacy for Ghana as he goes for his second term. And one of the drastic things that I was expecting that he would do will be that he would reduce the size of his government. And he's done that. And for me, I commend the reduction, even though I still feel that the numbers could have still hovered around 45 and 50. But we are told it's hovering around 80. Yes. It is fine. I mean, it's better than the over 120 people who were appointed and all that. So it is it is something that we must commend the president about.
Okay.
And like I said, I would have wished that the number was reduced from over 80 to around 45 or 50. But
okay.
let's leave it like that. The other bit that I've observed is that it appears that women representation in ministerial appointment and deputy ministerial appointment, and the number hasn't really changed. In the previous regime, they were 10. Now they are still 10. I was thinking that going forward and wanting to leave a legacy in the psyche of many Ghanaians, he would have brought a lot of women to the fore. But this hasn't been done. Maybe, I don't know whether this time he will do more reshuffles, in a second term, so that he brings more women and gives
his second term?
The chance just to...
Did you say his second term? Oh, you were hoping that he will do more reshuffles in this term?
Yes.
Oh, right.
I'm hoping that this, his first term was reputed to be the most stable government in the history of Ghana's Fourth Republic. He virtually did no reshuffle. And all that. So I am hoping that now that he wants to leave a legacy in the minds and the psyche of many Ghanaians, he may do more reshuffles so that he will bring more women in to further advance the quest to ensure that women take their rightful place, in decision making and in politics. But beyond this, I think that it is the prerogative of the president who has the mandate to determine and to decide who he wants to work with and who he doesn't want to work with. It is the president who is the chief evaluator of the performance of the various ministers and deputy ministers, not you and I. And so it is the president who knows a deputy minister who has performed, and the president who knows a deputy minister who has not performed. And so it is his prerogative to decide who he wants to work with and who he doesn't want to work with. I've heard people saying, but why was this one not in, and why has this one been brought in? I think that decision is entirely in the hands of the president. The buck stop with him. When there are praises or blames, he will take them. And so he is having the mandate to assemble a team. And he's done that. And I think
speaking of that, Prof, there are people, as my colleague Winston here has just highlighted in his analysis, it looks like those who lost their seats, none of them has been selected to be a part of this government. Does it have any political significance?
Well, but that's a rational thing to do. You have a hung parliament, and you need people to be there to go prosecute your agenda to ensure that government business wasn't bestalled and all that. And so, if you are not in parliament, and we need members of parliament to also be MPs so that they can also advance the business of government, then you have no business receiving any appointment, ministerial or deputy ministerial appointment. I think that is strategic, politically wise thing to do. If you lost your seat, you should just go and rest somewhere.
So you've mentioned size and female representation. I don't know if you have any other observations, but my next question to you was what your thoughts are of what looks like a youthful selection, as Winston puts it. He says that most of the people you can do the calculation and say they are somewhere 50 under 50. Does it also have any significance, or you have any observations around that?
Well, we criticize the previous regime or the first term of President Akufo-Addo's government as plagued with gerontocracy. It is not always the case that wisdom always is in the gray hair. A nation that severs itself from its young people would bleed to death. It will not be able to develop and all that. So there is always the quest and the thought of giving young people the chance. And so if this idea has also been accepted by the president, and so he has relatively younger people joining his government, I think it helps us as we try as a nation to season, groom, and mentor people to be able to take over the mantle of leadership of this country. If the future belongs to the youth, then the youth must be prepared for the future now.
In a nutshell, what would be your expectation generally of this lean team, as you put it, and how they deliver?
President Akufo-Addo will not be contesting for election again. He would want to do things that would outlive him when he's no longer in office. And so I expect that the people he's assembled will be able to help him to achieve what he has set out to achieve. If they are able to be successful in doing this, we would benefit. We, the ordinary people, would benefit. If they fail, we would have wasted our time. And so I wish them well. I'm expecting that they will live in working to inch themselves closer to the vision of the president, so that at the end of the day, a legacy will be left, and then the lots of many Ghanaians would have also been bettered.
Well, thank you very much for your time. Unless you have any other observations apart from the size and the female representation, I'm done for now. Professor Jampo there from the University of Ghana is a political scientist. They're sharing his thought. He thinks that it's good that we have, 86?
86, yes.
Winston, and also he is concerned about female representation. He's hopeful that there will be more reshuffles that will bring in more women as we go along. Winston, I know you have some thoughts on that. Let me just bring in Michael Ochubefi, who is the Deputy Trade Minister nominee. Mr. Befi, congratulations.
Thank you very much, my sister.
Okay. I spoke to one of your other colleagues earlier, and he said that this has been circulated for a while. It's been speculated for a while. You've had meetings. So at this point, you're not really in a surprised state. But what do you bring on board?
Thanks for the opportunity. I guess that assertion was right. Just over the period, it has been in the media space for some time now. I'm talking about the list. It seems to me that people have a window of it, so that's the situation now. I have been in this system for some time now, doing politics and also corporate work. And I've worked with the trade minister for some time now, working with him at the manifesto committee level before we won the 2016 election. I also served as a member of the transition team then, the Trade and Industry Subcommittee, and also working as the Chief Executive of Ghana Free Zones Authority. I think I have what it takes now to help my Honorable Minister to achieve the industrialization strategy of government, to push the agenda forward for us to achieve the ultimate industrialization of this country.
I think one of the key things that people within the business, setup complain about is the cost of doing business in Ghana, which we constantly lament. Also, there is the after now that a lot of people are saying Ghanaian businesses should cash in on this opportunity that we have, but the Ghanaian businesses do not seem to have the muscle. Call it the financial muscle, the technical know-how sometimes to compete evenly with the other people who will all be coming to us after. What is the plan, if there is one in your mind already?
I think at least we have been in this business for some time now, thinking about the need for us to make the ease of doing business in Ghana here very good and also competitive so that people can do business well. That has been their worry over the period. I'm talking about businesses that operate in Ghana, always thinking about and also talking about the ease of doing business. That is just not too good. But I guess now we have the opportunity also to bring what we know on board and also to see what we can do. I mean, looking at what happens in other jurisdictions and over the period, what has happened in other places that has helped their economies to change in terms of the ease of doing business. We are sure we'll be able to do something. We are so sure. I'm so clear in my mind that I have a plan in place that I can suggest to my Honorable Minister and also my colleagues, because the after is a big opportunity for Ghana. So Ghanaian businesses should be able to take a huge opportunity in this arena.
But they can't do it on their own. Elsewhere, governments have supported these businesses so that they'll be able to compete evenly with their counterparts in other countries.
But I think government does that through technical support and sometimes giving what we call stimulus package to businesses that hitherto has been down or has not been functioning so well. Government has done well in the area of stimulus package and trying to revive businesses that were dead, were not functioning well.
Okay.
And the support still exists. I believe that we should be able to support a lot of local businesses. Because one of the key things that when I was at Free Zones, I tried to achieve was trying to build the financial muscles and capabilities or capacities of local businesses so that they'll be able to compete with the international business. Because most of the times, most anchor businesses that set up in the free zones and even in the system comes through foreign direct investment. Then when these businesses want to exit, I mean, the owners or promoters of the business want to exit, we don't have local business people who have that muscles
to take over
in terms of finance to be able to acquire such businesses.
Right.
And so we tend to now to go to international stock markets and find other investors elsewhere to come in, and that is not a good thing for Ghana. Okay. So that's one of the key things that we have to work on in trying to change the status quo.
Mr. Chubefi, these are still early days yet, except that you have been at the Free Zones board, and so let's not push it too much. We just wish you all the very best at the vetting, and we'll take it from there. Thank you for your time. Michael Oshubefi, Deputy Trade nominee for Deputy Trade Minister nominee there. Winston, do you want to answer from the previously, or you want to have a quick one on this?
Well, he's not getting in there. Yes, he's been. Yeah. He's talked about how he's worked with, the minister. The minister while they were drafting the NPP manifesto for 2016. We've talked about AFTA. We've talked about the implementation. Not long ago, Imani had a program, and you had the Kasapeko rep talking about some of the challenges that they've even faced as a result. Yeah. Look, I just pray that, we don't turn AFTA into an oil find that we did in Ghana some time ago. It's good to talk about these things, but don't let it seem like it's the panacea to solving all your problems overnight. Well, problems don't get solved overnight all of a sudden.
You start from somewhere.
You start from somewhere, but a lot of the conversations now after with coming into force of AFTA.
I think people are genuinely concerned about our ability to take advantage of this opportunity, and I think it's a well-placed concern.
We're supposed to take advantage of the oil. It's been 10 years. We're here.
Let's see how it goes. Let's keep the focus on the politics. Okay. So I was asking your thoughts on what Professor Jampo said as we wrap up, Winston, about the size. He's impressed about the size. I think a lot of people constantly talked about the size. So, but then he's also concerned that there is very low female representation.
Well, but even when it comes to the size, Professor Jampo makes the point that he probably thinks that our ministers could be 45 to 50. Yes. That's a promise the NPP made in 2000 about having about 45 ministers, something that could not be done at the time. Yes, I can agree that the size has reduced, also because a lot of the ministries that were in place in the first administration of Akufo-Addo, really, if you looked at them, you say these ministries were not necessary. I mean, you could just have a desk for those ministries. You don't need a monitoring and evaluation. You're two deputy ministers. So I can understand why this time around those ministries have been scrubbed and merged with other ministries. 45 is always going to be difficult because if they're to appoint deputy ministers. But also, we must get to a point where we must agree that a lot of the deputies may not be necessary. And so sometimes, because look, if you look at this list, there's no deputy chieftaincy minister. Yeah. There isn't one.
So I guess it depends on the work, because again, if you go back and you look at the list, you have energy, trade and industry, you have finance, you have energy taking 3. I mean, even for finance, you have 4. So I guess it depends on the work there, because finance ministry works with almost all the ministries.
Good. And you talk about local government decentralization, rural development.
And also 3, exactly. That was quite curious for me as well.
You ask yourself that simple question. Local government, rural development. In fact...
And you have your MMDC.
MMDC is one.
So, yes.
Another thing that, the regional ministers do the regional ministers actually serve as coordinators of, the decentralization process. So they also have a role to play in all of this.
Yeah.
And that's why, for this ministry, for instance,
you don't really need
you
a lot of deputies.
But hey, the president's prerogative. Well, the female representation is still not the best. It is 86 now. I think 70 would have been...
70 women?
70 ministers, no.
Oh, right.
70 ministers and deputies is something we should aim at doing as a country.
Okay, Winston, thank you so very much for helping us with this analysis. Winston Amwa is deputy head of our political desk. Of course, we've taken you through the list. We've spoken to some of them. What value are they adding or bringing to on board to us as taxpayers? You've heard them. We'll see how it all goes. You're still watching The Pulse with me, Gifty and Apia. A very quick break. I'll be right back. We still have 2 more big stories for you.